Hello and welcome to 345 Auction. My name is Scott Sampson. I am a photographer, graphic designer, and editor here at 345 Auction. I have a Bachelor of Fine Arts from the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. I am also here today with the wonderful Melissa, one of our catalogers here and aficionado of art. Today we have two wonderful lithographs from Alexander Calder. When these two pieces first came into our shop, Calder, his name just kind of spoke to me, and I couldn't really remember why. And then after a while, finally, my art history class kind of came back into my mind, and I finally remembered he is the father of kinetic sculptures. So that's probably where you hear the name Calder. But unfortunately, we don't have any of his amazing kinetic sculptures here. But we have two wonderful lithographs that he has made around the 1970s. So we will talk about Calder a little bit of his history, how he came to the abstract world. Alexander Calder was born at the turn of the century, 1898 in Pennsylvania. His father was a sculptor and his mother was a painter. Throughout his childhood, he did move around a lot with his parents. His father was part of the arts program that the government had back then in the 1900s. And so his parents always wanted him to just do art and all this, so he'd always have a studio wherever he lived. Kind of his first kinetic sculpture he did was he made a duck that would rock back and forth. As he grew up, he really didn't want to become an artist at first, so he did go to the Stevens Institute of Technology and got a mechanical engineering degree in 1919. He just did numerous jobs throughout his life before he became an artist. In one of those jobs, he was a fireman on a ship. One day, very early, he woke up to a beautiful fiery sunset. At the same time, he saw a full moon on the opposite horizon. Just seeing the duality of the fiery sun and the silvery moon inspired him, and you can kind of see those elements in some of his works. After that, he got inspired to become an artist, so he enrolled into the Art Student League in New York. He did many types of art, from jewelry making to sculpture to painting. Eventually, he did move to Paris, and that is where he became who he is. While in France, he actually became friends with some pretty well-known artists. Miro, who was an abstract and surrealist painter. Leger, who was a color artist. James Johnson Sweeney, who was actually the director of the Guggenheim at the time. And also Duchamp, who was a surrealist and abstract sculptor. At one time, he did meet Mondrian, who is a minimalist and abstract artist. After visiting Mondrian's studio, Calder got a quote shock from looking at the abstract and innovative ways Mondrian had. So after Mondrian, this is where he fully became an abstract artist and abstract sculptor.
Hi, I'm Melissa. I'm a cataloger with 345 Auction. What I'd like to bring up about these particular prints that I find fascinating is that this is the time period when primary colors really started to come into play. And he started to get exhibited throughout the country a lot more at the Guggenheim, the Whitney, the Federal Plaza. He even had a mural at JFK back in the 60s. And even at this point in 74, I think, he was commissioned by an airline to celebrate the 20th anniversary of flying to South America, which back then was still a big deal. And they took several of his pieces and incorporated it all into one plane. And then 2 years later, he did one for the what is it called? The Flying Colors of America, where it's all red, white, and blue abstract.
So these pieces, as I said before, are lithographs. Lithography is a type of printmaking. As the name says or is, lithograph is litho, which is stone, and then graph is a drawing or picture. These lithos were created on a slab of limestone. What you have to do is you have to create that separation of water and oil or grease. That is the type of ink that you would use in the lithograph process. You have a piece of limestone, you draw on it with very greasy materials. Depending on how thick you make your grease marks, you can create tonal differences. With Calder and his abstractions, he basically stuck to simple one-tone colors and bold lines. Again, so you would draw on the limestone. When you have completed that, you have to prepare your stone then with materials like gum arabic to resist water, and then you have to introduce some kind of acid, either nitric acid or phosphoric acid. That acid will start to eat away at the stone so that either water can seep into the stone as you're preparing your prints, or the greasy ink will stay on the greasy parts of your picture. And with the lithography, you are able to create multiple prints or multiple pictures on just one slab. These two lithographs we have today were created by Calder and his team, and they are based on some watercolor or gouache paintings that were similar to these. So with the piece on the left, you can kind of see that inspiration that I was talking about earlier when he was on that ship. You can see circles that could represent the fiery sun, also the up red arrow, and then this half circle shape could be inferred as that silvery moon that he saw on the opposite horizon, again going down below the horizon. These colors and the bold design really reflected the time that he was in, the 60s and early 70s, with the primary colors and the bold black lines. And over here you can see the similar color palette. He really didn't deviate from the primary colors. With these lithographs and his paintings and drawings were usually just inspiration and study for his mobile sculptures. And you can kind of see that swirly spinning aspect of his kinetic sculptures in this piece. It is just wonderful to have two pieces from a famous artist that shaped modern art in America. Thank you all for joining us here today at 345 Auction. It was fun to talk about an amazing and influential abstract artist. These two lithographs are available again at our website 345auction.com, and you can find them in the Confluence of Collections auction, lots 166 and 167. And that auction will end on April 6th at 7 p.m. Mountain Time.